Good day, everyone. Welcome to Black Logic. Trump pressures China and India to halt Russian oil imports, proposing massive tariffs amid rising geopolitical tensions. China, India, and Turkey remain top consumers of Russian oil, raising concerns over global sanction evasion. Texas Democrats flee the state to block GOP redistricting. And civil arrest warrants issued by Republicans in retaliation. Now, GOP leaders threaten $500 daily fines, removals, and felony charges as Democrats vow to resist partisan maps. Israeli prime ministers announced plans to retake full control of Gaza, sparking global outcry and internal military pushback. Benjamin Netanyahu greenlights operations in hostage zones, risking lives and igniting protests from hostage families. Tensions flare as IDF chief resists full Gaza plan, and Netanyahu threatens dismissal, deepening Israeli divide. When we get into these stories, you're going to find out not only what gerrymandering is and how you can divide and uphold power, as well as the reoccupation of Gaza in the state of Palestine and how Palestine really doesn't have any power. So when we speak in the regards of Palestine in the region, we're going to definitely break that down for you guys this morning, as well as this evening, because I think that this story here has a lot of weight to it. But first, I do want to look at, as it pertains to Russia, India, Turkey, and China, and the purchasing of Russian oil. And the reason why this is important is because President Trump has put sanctions on Russia, and he's really informing and encouraging, and in some regards threatening, these particular countries not to buy Russian oil, because Trump has raised tariffs up to 100%, even proposed secondary sanctions of 500% aimed at countries importing Russian oil to pressure Putin towards a ceasefire with Ukraine. And China remains the largest buyer. They're buying $133 billion worth of oil, followed by Turkey as well as India. And as I told you guys before, when we look at these countries within the region that's really close to Russia, none of these countries are backing down and being fear-mongered into making decisions based upon their country's economy when it comes to President Trump. Even though we have these partnerships and some of these countries that we consider allies or we're very neutral with, we're not giving them the same bargains and deals that Russia is when it pertains to oil. So it's advantageous for them to continue to buy cheap Russian oil and gas versus try to buy, all the fracking and oil and gas that America is selling. And then you also have the import-export tax, tariffs, etc. So again, what is the incentives of this buying oil from whether it be the Middle East and or America versus Russia, especially as it pertains to India and China? They're very close to Russia in that particular region, again, including Turkey. So as I look at this, the global dynamics are playing out very staunchly, because what is going to be our relationship if these countries do not adhere to President Trump's advice? Because a senior Trump aide accused India of effectively financing Russia's war machine via oil imports, though report says China imports even more and is being overlooked in rhetoric. Now, here's my question, just going off the past dealing of President Trump, when it comes to sanctions of other countries that do not do what he wants them to do, how would this affect Indian Americans, one, who are residents and or citizens, Indian visa holders, whether it be work or student? How would that affect them? Because there's a large populations of Indians inside of America. And I'm not referring to Native Americans. I'm referring to people who are from India, the country of India. So I'm gonna call them Indians. So you guys have context in regarding the explanation and definition of who and what they are and where they're from. How is this going to affect those people who are from India? Because again, Indians in America are the largest group are the richest group in America, next to Chinese and Japanese and Asians all together. Now, when it comes to economics, Asians as a whole make more per capita than white, blacks, and Hispanics. So will President Trump use the people of India as leverage and pressure and put sanctions and or restrictions or revoke residencies in order for India to bend the knee to the sanctions that President Trump has put on Russia? I know I said a lot there, but nonetheless, I just want you guys to think about that, because I think it's utterly important that we definitely understand the dynamics of this. Okay. We really need to understand the dynamics of that particular story, because this can go really wrong really fast. Now, over 50 states House Democrats fled to deny Republicans a quorum on redistricting vote backed by Trump's ambitions. Okay. Now, in response to the GOP legislators issued civil arrest warrants enforceably only within Texas borders. And most Democrats are now in blue states outside law enforcement reach. They didn't want to go to red states because the red states would have enforced the warrants and capture these Democrats and then send them back to Texas. Now, in this particular standoff raises questions. Will Republicans pursue removal from office or felony charges? And legal experts doubt enforceability when it comes to this, because Democrats, they vow to continue their fight for voter rights in Central Texas. And this is the basic definition, okay, of gerrymandering. And this to kind of give you more context, gerrymandering is a political art of redrawing voter districts to benefit one party while undermining the power of another. And think of it as slicing a pizza in a way that ensures you always control the biggest pieces, even if fewer people voted for you. And as we look at how this works, and we're just going to break this down even more so for you guys. And you don't really have to comb through this. I'll do all the heavy lifting for you guys, because this is not as difficult as this is not as difficult as how they make it seems. Okay. Because the way this works is that the ruling party, who's the GOP, manipulates district lines. They manipulate them. Okay. They manipulate these lines to pack opposition voters into a few districts or crack them across many districts, diluting their voting power. And the impact here is that this skews representation, allowing one party to dominate legislators without earning a proportional share of votes. Now, in Texas, critics argue that Republicans have mastered this game, locking in long-term dominance at the expense of Black, Latino, and these urban communities. That's how that is the reason why we are here today, the way how they are manipulating this. And again, this whole cracking method and the way they pack it. Okay. And I'm just showing you here on your screen. I'll blow this up for you guys, because I really want to break this down for we can all understand. Because when it comes to politics, in some regards, don't forget, when it comes to politics, majority of politicians, a lot of senators, a lot of Congress people, they are lawyers. They're not practicing lawyers. They have passed the bar exam. Majority of them have passed the law exam. And that's why they understand the law. And the law was meant to confuse, as I stated yesterday, the commoners. We're the commoners. A lot of us, we didn't go to law school. We didn't pass the bar exam. We only know what you show us. And again, if no one's is really breaking this down to a level where it's feasible and that we can regurgitate this knowledge. So again, if someone to ask us, we can actually explain it to it, then more times than not, it's going to be more confusing than what it is. So that's my aim here today, because as we look at this, why did the Democrats flee Texas? Why did they flee? Because Republicans, with the backing from Donald Trump, introduced a mid-decade redistrict plan that could flip up to 5 Democratic-held congressional seats to GOP control before 2026. And over 50 Democratic lawmakers left the state They left the state to break quorum, meaning Republicans can't legally vote on the plan without enough members present. And Governor Abbott issued civil arrest warrants for absentee Democrats and slapped them with $500 a day fines, hoping to force them to return. Now, as a so-called commoners, American citizens, residents therein, why this is important, even though this is happening in the state of Texas, we may see this happen in many other states where gerrymandering will take place. So the GOP will continue to hold power. So this is a power struggle. And more times than not, whether it be a red state or blue state, you still have Democrats and you still have Republicans in these opposition states. But the more seats that one party has over another and they stay permanent, that particular political party will always have more power than the other party, meaning more votes when passing certain legislation that the other party, whether it be the Democrats or Republicans, don't have enough votes to overturn or to keep it at a standstill. So again, when I tell you this is a power struggle on the highest level, that is because that's what this is. And Governor Abbott is trying to incarcerate, lock up, detain a lot of these Democrats who fled the state. Now, as I stated, that this is what they're trying to impose as a permanent GOP stronghold. If passed, the new map would entrench Republican power in the state of Texas for a decade, undermining competitive elections. And when we look at the suppression of what they're stating the minority vote, when it comes as it pertains to Black and Latino voting strength, it will be diluted, weakening their political representation. Now, 5 flip seats could make or break Democratic chances of regaining control of the U.S. House in 2026. So it's not as if that the Republicans want to retain power as they already have, because they're the majority in the Senate, they're the majority in the House, and they also have the presidency. This is the way for the Democrats in some regards to maintain their power so they can regain the House in the 2026 midterms. So again, this is utterly important when it comes to the power struggle of both political parties. Now, as they try to redistrict in order to vote, this stalls until session ends on August 19th of 2025. So they may try to hold out until that date. And Republicans may try special sessions or sue in court, but without quorum, no immediate passage. And Democrats face massive fines and possible removal from office, risking their careers for democracy, so to speak. Now, what if the Democrats return? The Republicans pass the map almost immediately. The GOP cements control for years, and minority districts are splintered. And federal court battles could challenge the map, but it may be too late for the 2026 elections. And a lot of you may be asking, why does this matter? Which is an important answer. An important question, no less. Why does this matter? As I comb through the details here, this isn't just a Texas fight when we look at this. It's a national democracy battle, as they're stating, because if Republicans succeed, it sets precedents for mid-decade the redistricting over these certain enclaves within Texas, but it also can spread nationwide and infuse takeovers of certain districts that were democratically led or GOP led. And Democrats are betting their political lives to stop what they call electoral theft, gerrymandering, electoral theft. The outcome would define whether voters pick their politicians or politicians pick their voters. And this is what this is about. In some regards, I understand what the Democrats are doing. And again, just as a disclaimer, if you're new to Black Logic, please hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell, so you know every time I release a video and or go live. I understand what the Democrats are doing because this is a power struggle, but that means that for decades to come, the GOP in those districts will utterly have all the power and say so as it pertains to legislation, laws, policies, etc. And they're trying to stop this. And I totally understand. But is this the right way to go? Should they hold off until August 19th in order to do this? As I comb through the details and what may happen, it's a larger play at hand, because if they do come back, this will pass immediately and the Democrats will lose 5 seats and automatically will give the GOP, the Republicans, majority of the vote in Texas for a very long time. So that means that any legislation democratically led will never have a chance unless they have some bipartisanship heavy on the Republican side. And we know when the Democrats try to pass legislation, whether it be on a state or federal level and vice versa, we understand that they still need anywhere from 1 to 5 votes from the opposing party. And sometimes that does happen because you may have some Republicans that agree with some liberal laws, that they understand this will affect people in a positive manner, and then vice versa. But if this happens, there's no chance in hell that the Democrats will ever hold any power, especially in those neighboring and especially in Texas. And believe me, look at this as the blueprint going forward for what the Republicans may do in red states and what Democrats may act and leave the state until that date and come back and face civil arrest as well as fines. And no other than Jasmine Crockett, she was also stating that she has enough money to cover these fines. I just want to point that out. I don't know how much money she has, ladies and gentlemen, but again, she's playing with fire. I mean, me personally, I wouldn't do that. There's other way to handle this. And again, we're at a standstill. We're at a standstill this morning when it comes to this. But nonetheless, I think this is important to follow because this redistrict plan crafted to shift 5 congressional seats towards the GOP could have long-term impacts. And again, this is all ahead of the 2026 midterms. And Democrats argue that the maps, they argue that the maps dilute the Black and Latino votes in those areas. But nonetheless, Governor Greg Abbott have imposed civil fines of $500 a day and threats of removal from office. And they're saying that this, they can't do that. But now they're doing fundraising to pay bills that are on the table from the GOP leadership. So I wonder how long will this continue? Will this last until August 19th or not? Will the Democrats hold out? I'm waiting to see. I don't have a dog in the fight, but I still think it's interesting because this could, again, be the blueprint. This could be the plan moving forward for other red states so the GOP can continue to control their states and the presidency when Donald Trump time is up. Nonetheless, this is how things are going when it comes to the redistricting of these areas and how they plan to do so. It states here that the state house is currently scheduled to meet at 2 p.m. if it doesn't appear that the house will have enough lawmakers present to reach the 2/3 attendance needed for quorum. So this is what they're doing. In order for this to happen, they need 2/3 of attendance. And so out of the 62 Democrats that hold seats in Texas, 50 of them fled to other blue states, other liberal and democratic states. So as I look at this, this is the plan of the Democrats. Again, I don't know if it's intelligent. I don't know if it's smart, but I know they understand the law and how it pertains to the 2/3 rule in order from the whole session, in order for these seats to be upheld in the redistrict of these areas. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has presented a U.S.-backed cabinet plan to fully reoccupy Gaza, and the directive includes military operations in areas believed to hold Hamas captives. Of course, we got to have Hamas. They got to be in the region in order for us to reoccupy. Now, granted, Hamas did show a hostage that they still have in captivity. So this is giving Israel just cause to reoccupy Gaza. I believe that Hamas, they did show at least one frail body, unfortunately, frail body Israeli that they still hold captive. But this is given Benjamin Netanyahu, the IDF, the state of Israel, just cause to reoccupy Gaza. Now, do not forget that Gaza is in the country of Palestine. So I don't know what the Palestine government, I don't even know if they have a military, but we're going to break it down for you guys, because the IDF chief of staff has reported opposing this, prompting that Benjamin Netanyahu allegedly demand resignation if he can't deliver compliance. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, the chief of staff says that he opposed reoccupying Gaza. And Benjamin Netanyahu, in some regards, sounds like President Trump. If you don't do it, then you will resign. You will get fired. And you have former security figures, humanitarian groups, hostage families warned that the move could backfire and endanger hostages and isolate Israel further on the world stage. If you try to go in guns blazing to reoccupy Gaza, they're stating that the people who are still held in captivity by Hamas, that their lives would be further threatened. And that Hamas just may just, in some regards, chop off their heads, eliminate them because of this. Now, this is one of the reasons why we have this terrorist group, Hamas, in the region, because some critics are stating, and some reports are stating, it's because of the occupying of Gaza and other areas in Palestine. That doesn't give Hamas just cause to harm innocent people, but then Hamas will state that Israel has harmed innocent Palestinians and they are the freedom fighters. Yeah, this can really get dark, family. This can really get dark really quickly. And I just really think that if we pull back the curtain and expose the raw, unfiltered truth about one of the most complex and controversial and devastatingly misunderstood geopolitical entanglements in modern history, we have to start with Palestine, which is a land, a people, and a history that predates modern conflict. Now, contrary to what sanitized textbooks or legacy mass media and cable news would tell you, Palestine, also known as Philistine, was not some barren land that people make it out to be. This wasn't some barren wasteland waiting to be civilized. It was home to cities, families, schools, farms, industries, and mosques. And Palestinians lived, thrived, and governed in this space through fragmented under Ottoman and then British control. And that the modern state of Palestine as a political entity was declared in 1988 by the Palestinian Liberation Organization, claiming the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem as its sovereign territory. But here's the catch that I think, a lot of people are not understanding how people are really looking at this. They're never truly control the land. Not completely, not militarily, not economically, and certainly not politically. Their authority has been a mirage, a paper-thin veil of autonomy granted through the Oslo Accords of the 1990s, where the Palestinian Authority was allowed to govern in a fragmented, weakened capacity, always under the shadow of Israeli occupation. So today, the Palestinian people are split in two. You have the West Bank under the Palestinian Authority, crippled by bureaucracy and international dependency. And you have Gaza that's ruled by Hamas, which is an isolated enclave under siege. And there is no unified leadership, no centralized military, no control of borders. They can't control their own airspace. They don't even have their own currency. They are in that particular area, they are a state in name only, politically, in some regards, neutered, economically strangled, and militarily occupied. This is the reason why it's so easy for Israel to do what they're doing. Palestine is not a unified state. You have the West Bank by the Palestinian Authority, and you have Gaza by a terrorist group, Hamas, as what, the so-called Westerners label them as. And now when you enter Israel, a state that was constructed and born in 1948 from the United Nations partition plan, like, you know what? Palestine, even though we know the area and region of Palestine, we know they have the West Bank and Gaza, which make up the region of Palestine, the statehood of Palestine. We're going to do a partition plan, which was originally designed to split mandatory Palestine into Jewish and Arab states. Like, you know what? Within this area of Palestine, we're going to make this a Jewish state, Israel, and then you guys can kind of have the rest when it comes to, you guys being Arabic and et cetera. That's what they did. The United Nations decided. Whoever was representing Palestine, maybe they wasn't at the table. Again, government and organization is everything. Unification and organization is everything. And I think that's where Palestine failed at. They had no unifying body. They never created a country military to even to stand in the way. But when Arab states rejected the plan, sensing injustice and a lack of equity, because again, a lot of these Arab states are like, no, we don't agree to that. A war erupted from this, ladies and gentlemen. And Israel didn't just survive, it expanded. It gained more land than the plan allocated. It displaced over 700,000 Palestinians in an event known as Nabuk or Nakba. I don't know how to pronounce this, Nakba. And this is how they expanded the state of Israel, by doing so, again, by war. And this is how land has always been gained, by war. But again, I always ask myself this question. If a lot of the Arab states within the region were against this, then why in the heck didn't they step in and form a unified Arab state military to oppose this Israeli takeover of that particular region? You know why. I know why. Not only because of the United Nations, because of the powerful Western countries that have been backing Israel, especially the one and only United States of America. Because as we see it today, Palestine before 1948 was beautiful. It was natural, so to speak, as people will say. But now we have France as well as the UK trying to identify and back a Palestinian statehood. But how they're going to do that if Palestine is not unified and organized and have a real government in place? This is the reason why this is very easy for Israel to do. I just wonder why, because Nakba, Nakba, they also call it the catastrophe. And from that point forward, Israel began building one of the most powerful military machines in the world, backed by billions of dollars in U.S. aid, cutting edge surveillance, and diplomatic immunity on the global stage. So how does such a tiny country like Israel, smaller than the state of New Jersey, put into perspective, they're smaller than the state of New Jersey, hold the power to not only govern itself, but dominate and occupy another people? Since the Six-Day War in 1967, Israel has maintained military control over the West Bank and previously Gaza, placing checkpoints, building settlements, constructing barriers, and monitoring every move of the Palestinian population, even after it withdrew troops and settlers from Gaza in 2005. Israel never truly left. It has maintained a brutal air, land, and sea blockade, controlling everything from food and medicine to construction materials. Gaza became the world's largest open air prison, where 2 million people are packed in with no exit, no autonomy, and no future. And now here we are in 2025. We stand on the edge of something much darker. This is darker than we could ever imagine, ladies and gentlemen. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu embroiled in political chaos, corruption scandals, and desperate of his entangled hold of power. He has proposed something that has shocked even seasoned Israeli generals a full reoccupation of the Gaza Strip. Now, I've been telling you guys this for months, that he has been planning to reoccupy Gaza. Even President Trump talked about reoccupying Gaza by American hands and making the area of Gaza Strip beachfront property. And we're not talking about just temporary inclusions, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about a permanent, boots on the ground military presence, Israeli control over every street, every neighborhood, every breath taken inside of Gaza will be controlled by the Israeli Defense Force. Now, this isn't the first time that Israel has re-entered occupied territory. We've seen it in the West Bank in 2002, but this proposed action, in my regard, is unprecedented in modern times. It will reverse nearly two decades of disengagement. This will definitely just wipe away what they have progressed to be. It will plunge the region into permanent warfare, and it will all be done under the guise of scrutiny, even as the IDF commanders themselves warn such a move could get hostages killed, drain resources, and trap Israel in a never-ending quagmire. And the more I look at this, the more I wish that Palestine was a country that was recognized, that was organized, that established a government, that had a seat in the UN. Because without a unifying body in an area as large as Palestine, this is the reason why the UN came up with the partition plan and gave Israel, land in the region, and then Israel expanded that land within Palestine, because you're not organized, you're not together. And I'm not blaming Palestine for all the atrocities that the IDF, by the way of this terrorist act of Hamas, have done, and how many of hundreds, if not thousands of people have been harmed and killed, and the starvation that we're now seeing, not only as it pertains to children, but also to the Palestinian people. So I ask you, what gives Israel the power to do this? What makes the world sit in silence as Gaza burns, as children die, as international law is trampled? This is a fractured Palestinian resistance and the political will to do what others won't. And the U.S., we may express concern. The EU may wring its hands, and the UN may release strongly worded statements. But let's be very, very clear. Nothing stops Israel except consequence, and consequence have been absent. This is not just a military story. It's not just about borders or politics or who fired first. This is about occupation, subjugation, and control. We've seen this time and time again throughout history. This is not about occupation. This is not about subjugation. It's not just about control. It's about all of the above, and most importantly, it's about power. It's about a land where one people live under military law and another live as free citizens on the same soil. It's about apartheid. It's about surveillance. It's about suppression disguised as security. And if this reoccupation happens, if Israel rolls in its tanks into Gaza permanently, uproots what's left of the Palestinian infrastructure in that area, and declares full control, then the final mask will fall. The world will have to decide, is this about self-defense or is this about domination? Because the line between the two have already been crossed, and history is watching, and history is being repeated. I really think that the only thing that the UK and France can do, as they say that they will recognize the Palestinian statehood, is that they're going to have to do something that colonizing countries have never done before. Well, in some aspects, colonizing countries have done this, but they're going to have to do it in a way that benefits the people of Palestine. Meaning that not just picking people to be part of the political class in Palestine that will do business with Western powers, but pick political officials in Palestine and form a formal government that can be recognized. But true Palestinians that will not only start to build a military force and security and govern social economic so that people can start to work and have a sense of life within the region, they're going to have to pick really intelligent, smart, loving people, which colonizers really never do. And I'm not stating that in these regards that France and the UK are colonizers. I'm just going based upon their history, not their current state. And in some regards, you can still call them colonizing countries because, again, you still have France, you still have military security forces in Africa that are occupying militarily resources in Africa, but a lot of African countries are standing up and pushing back. So France is fleeing Africa because they don't want war, because how would that look on the world stage? But as I look at the history of Palestine, the history of Israel, the partition plan that the UN imposed and gave land to Israel, that is because Palestine has never been officially a country, officially a state. Because the one thing that every country is recognized by, in order for you to be a country, you have to have some sort of national security force and or military. You don't have to have an Air Force, you don't have to have a Navy, you don't have to have a Coast Guard, but you need an army. You at least need ground troops. And Palestine really doesn't have that. Their strongest military force, unfortunately, is Hamas, which have done terroristic acts against innocent people in the state of Israel, which is kind of given, initially, it gave Israel the just cause to invade the Gaza Strip. But now we have, 50,000 people have perished. Innocent people have perished because of this. So if I dive deeper into this story, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, in order for the UK and France to really step in, which will be opposing President Trump. He's totally against recognizing Palestine as a statehood, even though there's people who call themselves Palestinians. And I don't mean onesies and twosies or hundreds or 1,000. We're talking about millions of people recognize themselves as Palestinians. Guess who else needs to step in? Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, Dubai. All of these powerful, rich Middle Eastern states need to help Palestine form a government and the military in order to stop this reoccupation. Because I can tell you this, Western powers, we don't want to go to war with the Middle East as a unified body. We don't want to do that. It'd be all out war. That would be what we keep leaning towards. We thinking that the next World War III is going to be between Russia and China and all these other countries. No, the way this is turning out, folks, it won't be this against Iran, Russia, India. I've also thought about Iran getting into bed with Palestine. Then that would be a full-fledged war. So Iran needs to stay exactly what Iran is, as well as Iraq, because of our history of war. But when it comes to countries we've been very neutral with, Jordan, Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, all these very rich, powerful countries that has influential worldwide influence, they definitely need to step in cooperation with the UK and France for the best possible outcome for the people in Palestine. I don't see no other way, ladies and gentlemen, because if they don't step in and apply pressure and start to negotiate, there will be no more Palestine, but there'll always be an Israel, and it will become very, very large. And unfortunately, for a very long time, the United States of America had been supporting this in one way or another.